How do we know when it's time to replace our running shoes? When there's a sale? I love that idea, but let's talk about some more tips. Replacing our running shoes is sort of an emotional thing, right? We have gotten attached to these and they're expensive. So I've noticed that many runners tend to hang on to their shoes long after those puppies should have been retired. So tip number one, you can recycle them. Take them to a local running store so they will get a second life. Alternatively, keep them and turn them into your walking shoes, because you should have different shoes that you walk in than the ones that you run in, because your gait is different. Now, how do you know when this shoe has had enough and it's time to bring in a shiny new pair? Obviously, you have heard before things like looking at your tread, so you can see this one is it's smooth. So there is no longer any grip left, it is smooth. If your shoe is smooth, you have worn it to death. Another tip, a lot of folks who are smarter than me write the date here when they get a new shoe so that they have a pretty good idea when they're looking at it later of how many miles that they've put on it. Now, I've talked to you a lot about rotating your running shoes. I'm gonna put a link down below, so please make sure you're doing that. But if you have 300 to 500 miles, depending on the shoe, depending on the runner, it could be time to replace it. So that's a pretty big gap. What makes the difference? Heavier runners, sorry to say, but it is true, there's simply more breakdown. So that is, you're taller, you're more muscular, whatever it might be. It's putting more impact on the force, like on the shoe, just like it's putting impact on your bones. So they can break down a little bit faster. If you are running more on roads than, say, the treadmill, they will break down faster. So treadmill runners often notice their shoes will last longer. Maybe you notice that if you're doing more treadmill in the winter, you can get a little more life out of your shoes. Those are kind of a couple of the pieces. It also has to do with how you wear them, meaning, are you wearing them for all kinds of other things? Or do you have shoes that you dedicate to running and then shoes that you wear in the rest of your life? So my old running shoes become daily shoes, and that way I make sure that the shoes I am currently training in are only being worn for running. It really does matter. The other thing that I think is so common and gets overlooked is that you will start to physically feel when your shoes are no longer providing you the cushion and the stability that they were. So a lot of runners start to notice this in their legs, just feel kind of dead is always the way we describe it. Man, everything feels sort of heavy, or that run is normally really easy and now my knees are a little bit achy. So if you are doing all the right things, you haven't done a crazy jump in mileage or anything like that, and just all of a sudden you start to notice your legs are just feeling off, a lot of the times that's when I go look at my shoes and I say things to myself like, Amanda, look at this thing. You have clearly worn it for probably 500 or more miles and it needs to go. So I know they are an investment. We do not like to spend too much money on shoes if we don't yet need them. But think about how much that's impacting your body and keeping you injury-free to have a good pair of shoes. So I have reviewed about 8 million different styles, including Skechers, which surprises a lot of you, but I love them. I wore a pair of them for my ultra marathon. So I'll put some links down below if you're trying to kind of figure out what's right for you, best marathon training shoe, best shoe if you've got Achilles issues or things like that. As always, if you have other questions, make sure you let me know so that I can do a video on that too.